Welcome to my channel. In this video we will talk about all planned Allied airborne operations during the summer of 1944 in the run-up to Operation Market Garden. Operation Market Garden was the largest and most ambitious airborne operation in history. The sheer size and scope of the operation begs the question how its plan was conceived. To answer this question, we need to go back to the ending of the Normandy campaign. On July 25th, the Americans broke out and threatened to encircle the German army. In order to prevent the Germans from escaping via the Paris-Orléans Gap, the Allies planned an airborne operation under the codename Transfigure to block this route of escape. On August 13th, the American airborne troops were ready at the airport, but on August 17th, the attack was called off because Patton's Third Army had already overrun the intended drop zones. Meanwhile, the 1st Allied Airborne Army had been created on August 2nd. This army command was created to coordinate Allied airborne and troop carrier units. It consisted of two airborne army corps, the American 18th Airborne Corps with the 101st, the 82nd and the 17th Airborne Divisions, and the British 1st Airborne Corps with the 1st and 6th Airborne Divisions and the 52nd Air Landing Division, plus the Special Air Service Brigade and the Independent Police Brigade. The overall commander was the American General Lewis H. Brereton. The creation of such an army also created the scope of an army-sized deployment, but more about that later. Let's get back to the planned operations in August. On August 17th, a new plan was hatched, Operation Axe. While the American Third Army had cut off the German retreat to the east, it was essential to prevent the German withdrawal over the Seine River. In order to block the ferrying of German troops, the plan was to draw parachute forces to capture the major crossing points over the Seine. This plan was however axed on the 19th. That day, the Allies closed the Falaise encirclement of the German forces in Normandy. Perhaps the Allied High Command believed there was no longer a need to cut off their retreat as the German army was in the process of being destroyed. In hindsight, an opportunity was lost to deal the decisive blow to the German army in the west, because a sizable force of the encircled Germans managed to escape, and these units formed the nucleus of a reconstituted German army in the west. On August 19th, the Allied High Command was already thinking far beyond Normandy, as is reflected in their next airborne operation plan, Operation Boxer. This operation was aimed at the city of Boulogne in northern France. The idea was to draw parachute forces to capture this valuable port city, disable the V1 launch sites, and divert the German 15th Army by an attack in the flank. On August 25th, the plan was cancelled because it was not directly beneficial to the advance of the 21st Army Group. Montgomery's Army Group was on the brink of breaking out, and it was essential to secure river crossings to keep the momentum of the attack. That's how Operation Lineage came into existence. Lineage was meant to capture the Belgian city of Tournai with an airborne operation to secure a bridgehead over the Scheldt River and secure the road to the northeast towards Brussels. The intended drop zone was however overrun before airborne forces could take off. The Scheldt crossing shifted the focus to the next obstacle, the River Meuse. Operation Lineage 2 was a planned airborne operation to capture the bridges over the Meuse around Liège. Lineage 2 was cancelled because the British Field Marshal Montgomery had other plans. Instead of focusing on an eastward advance towards Cologne, he advocated a northeastward thrust towards Arnhem. Not accidentally, Montgomery's own British troops were poised in this direction. In order to have a better understanding of Montgomery's initial plan, we will zoom in on this sector. On September 3rd, Brussels was liberated. and the day after Antwerp was liberated as well. The British encountered only token resistance, and Montgomery was eager to exploit the German weakness in this sector. In the east, the reconstituted German 7th Army was rallying forces to prevent a breakthrough via Aachen, and in the west, the German 15th Army was trapped south of the Scheldt estuary. Between these two armies, there was practically no organized defense along the Albert Canal between Antwerp and Maastricht. It was in this atmosphere that Operation Comet was conceived. Comet was aimed at crossing the Rhine at Arnhem by dropping a parachute brigade over there, while dropping an air landing brigade and a parachute brigade near Nijmegen. The Polish Airborne Brigade would be dropped in a second airlift. The problem with Comet was not its ambition, but the fact that the British ground forces got stuck after they resumed their advance on September 6th. On September 8th, the British were embroiled in heavy fighting around the crossroads at Hechtel. This was the result of the German efforts to seal off the gap between their 7th and 15th Army by inserting the 1st Parachute Army into the front line. Ironically, the German 2nd SS Armored Corps moved into the area near Arnhem during the delay of the planned airborne operations in the same area. In the face of stiffening German resistance, Montgomery had to make a strategic choice. Either he would support the Canadian 1st Army on his left flank to destroy the German 15th Army and clear the Scheldt estuary, which would open up the port of Antwerp, or he would support the British 2nd Army in a renewed effort to cross the Rhine. Interestingly, the support of the Canadian 1st Army would include a division-sized parachute drop on the island of Walcheren, calling the codename Infatuate. Again, this would have cut off the escape of the German 15th Army south of the Scheldt estuary and led to its destruction, but the operation was deemed too risky due to the fortifications and anti-aircraft guns on the island, despite the fact that the island was defended by a relatively small garrison of grey-haired men at the period. Brereton, the commander of the Allied 1st Airborne Army, was against it, as he saw it as an improper use of airborne troops. Personally, I think that he hoped for a more large-scale airborne deployment, which would underline the importance of his large collection of airborne forces. On September 10th, events took a dramatic turn when the British managed to break out of the deadlock near Hechtel and establish a bridgehead over the Meuse-Scheldt Canal. That same day, Montgomery conferred with Eisenhower in Brussels and managed to convince him to support his ambitious plan of a gigantic airborne operation codenamed Market Garden. This plan was a kind of upgrade of Comet. In Arnhem, an entire parachute division was committed instead of a parachute brigade, and Nijmegen area would also see the commitment of a whole division, the American 82nd. The big difference with Comet was the landing of an airborne division north of Eindhoven to secure the bridges in that area, the American 101st. The British at Arnhem would be reinforced in a second wave with the Polish Airborne Brigade and eventually with the 52nd Air Landing Division. Market Garden would, in other words, commit the bulk of the Allied 1st Airborne Army in support of a land-based attack on the Meuse-Scheldt Canal bridgehead, all the way up to Arnhem. This large-scale deployment of airborne troops would both vindicate Montgomery's approach of a single thrust strategy with the British 2nd Army and Brereton's vision of a strategic deployment of his newly created airborne army. In any case, the deployment of the airborne troops was planned long before Market Garden, and in this perspective Market Garden was the result of a succession of plans, which gradually grew in strategic scope and deployment size. If you wish to know more about the presence of SS troops in the Arnhem area before Market Garden, please watch my video on that topic, and also check out my playlist on the Ardennes offensive. If you wish to support the channel, please like this video, leave your comments below and subscribe. Thank you.